Hello, and welcome, Denise. Denise
Good
Gannon,
morning.
Denise Gannon from Craft Arena. So, Denise, you are the owner of Craft Arena in Barleylands Craft Village in Billericay, and the shop and the gallery that also hosts classes and workshops has been at Barleylands for 14 years.
Yeah, since 2007. Is that 14 or is it 50? I lose count.
It's 14 years. Is that when the Craft Village first opened?
No, the Craft Village has been here for quite some time. They built a new phase, and that was when I joined.
Oh, okay. Right, okay. So was this your first business venture, or did you have a shop before?
No, I did have a business before. I previously had a computer training and website design business, but I wanted to change direction, and I started working from home as in my craft business in 2006.
Yeah.
Taking supplies to local groups. I'd also been doing my city and guilds in creative embroidery.
Yeah.
And I was finding it quite hard to obtain supplies. So that was another reason that I decided to start.
Yeah.
And then in 2007, the opportunity came up to move into a bricks and mortar store. So that's when I took that.
Oh, brilliant. So it must have been exciting. Tell me about, when you first opened.
Yeah, it was. Sorry, I'm just looking down at my notes. I'm not very good at remembering things. It was very exciting. I built up quite a clientele, taking the shop around mobile, and it was wonderful to see them coming into the shop. Always very exciting starting a new venture. You're never quite sure how it's going to work out, but it's obviously not been too bad. It was also good to see new people too. I mean, word seemed to spread more by word of mouth and everything. There wasn't much social media around then, so I couldn't promote it that way. And I started on a very tight budget, so I wasn't able to do much advertising. And when I look at the pictures of the shop that was like then and what it was there, what it's like now, there's just no comparison. I mean, you used to come in, didn't you, when we first opened?
Yeah.
In, so that you know the difference between then and now.
It's grown.
It's possibly the difference, really. Yeah.
Sort of with the likes of Peter Patterson, he was there then, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yes.
And Dean Smith's still there, and
Dean's still here. Yeah.
Many people have come and gone.
Yes, quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here.
So, from what age were you into craft? And tell me about Denise, the child teenager, and art and craft.
Child and teenager. As long as I can remember. I mean, I used to do bits with my mum. She taught me to knit, and she had a sewing machine, so I used to make dolls' clothes and things on that. And then as I got older, I used to make things for myself. I must have had a very inspirational teacher at junior school. No, infant school. Junior school, because when I started doing my city and guilds, we'd start to do something, I'd think, oh, I've done this before, and it took me back to then. So we did an awful lot. I can remember we did drawn thread embroidery, we did another form of embroidery which is called hard angle, which is one of my favorites. That's Norwegian type of hand embroidery. So we must have done all sorts of things then, and I think she was probably the one that inspired me to go into do needlework.
Yeah.
As I grew older, and life happens, that things got put on the back burner. And I used to make when I got married, I used to make my girls' clothes and a few clothes for myself, not much, but a few. And then it's a long story, but I won't go into that now. We'd be here all day. But when I started doing my city and guilds, I really got into it then, so that's when it became more than a hobby.
Yeah. So, are you in your shop now?
Yes, I am. Yes.
You've got someone else holding the fort, yeah?
Yeah. My granddaughter's helping. We'll talk about a little bit more about her later on.
Okay.
But yeah, holding the fort for me at the moment.
So, what drew you into running a craft shop? I think you said you were starting.
Well, yeah. When I was running my computer business, that was sort of like going into people's homes and teaching them how to use a computer, and I was always doing a little bit of basic website design as well. I joined a sort of like a peer group, and went along to one of their meetings, and one of the life coaches there was offering a free session. So I thought, oh, my business wasn't doing that great. So I thought I'd go along to her and sort of see what she had to offer. And it was quite interesting, actually, because one of the things she asked me was if I could do anything I wanted, what would I do? And I said, well, I'd like a studio so I can do a little bit of my own work. I'd like a shop so I can sell a few things. And I'd like to teach people how to craft. And as I was talking, I was getting more and more animated, and I could feel myself getting more and more excited describing this.
Yeah.
When she stopped, she said, when I stopped, she said to me, well, it's not a case of if, it's a case of when, isn't it? So I went, yes. And on the way home, I popped into Moulton Mill to see if I could get a place there. I emailed the council to see if I could get anywhere at Wat Tyler. Didn't hear anything from any of those ever. And then I suddenly remembered the Craft Village, because when I've been working in the NHS several years previously, and one of my staff had got a job there. So I emailed them to see if they had anything available. And she emailed me back to say, I'm here, we're just building a new phase, would you like to come and see it?
Wow.
So I said, yes, please, and came along and decided that's what I wanted to do. Well, previously to this, I'd thought about starting a business. I think by now I'd already started selling into college and things like that. And I'd been on a government business planning course and done a business plan, how to do a business plan. So anyway, I went home and I said to my husband, this is what I want to do. And he went, oh yeah, another one of your tin pot schemes, 5 minutes, you'll be wanting to do something else. And I went, there's my business plan. And he went, oh, you're serious? And he's been behind me ever since. So, he's so positive and he's so helpful.
Neil would say exactly the same to me if that was me. So.
Yeah. It was just funny to see the look on his face. I've seen that occasionally, but not very often.
Wow.
So that's really how I got started.
And look at you now. How much area do you cover on the first floor?
Oh, I've got 3 studios now, and one of them is like a big enough for, I think you could probably get 3 of the other studios in here. Yeah. So in effect, I've got 5. So yeah, so it's really big.
So it's a family business. Who else in your family works with you?
My granddaughter, as I said, she's at university at the moment, so she can't come over quite so often, but she's here now for the weekend. She's earning a little bit of extra money. And my husband as well. He wasn't really involved much at the start because he had a full-time job then as well. But now he's retired, I sort of rope him in to help me open parcels and get out stock and give me support, help me with my weekly newsletter, which is a task in itself. I should be doing it now, actually, so I'll be doing that this afternoon. Yeah. I send that weekly to my mailing list, and I've got about 1,200 people on my mailing list at the moment. So wow. That's quite a few people.
That's brilliant.
And if anybody wants to join that, they can just go to my website, www.craftarena.co.uk, and subscribe there.
Got any amusing stories in regard to the shop? Just got to
yeah, when I started, it's actually involving my husband. When I started, he said to me, there's nobody else like you that would come into a shop like that and spend 50 quid. And 15 years ago, 50 quid was a lot of money. And I said, yes, there is. He said, no, it'll never happen. I think I'd be out in about 24 hours when it did happen. So I phoned him and said, I've just had one of those non-existent customers that you were talking about coming to the shop. And he went, oh, yeah. And of course, it happened again, and I phoned him and told him, and it happened again, and I phoned him and told him, and he went, in the end, he went, all right, you were right, I was wrong. So that's quite amusing. I mean, there's lots of little stories about customers, but I can't actually think of anything. Most of my customers are so nice. We don't get any really funny stories. It's just, it's just a nice, inclusive place to be. What is nice though sometimes is when people come in and customers start talking to each other. You don't get that in most shops. People just come into shops, do their shopping and go. But they start talking to each other and they go out as friends. And I've had people come in, not know each other, and go out with each other's phone numbers. It's quite amusing.
Yeah. Oh, so you can tell me about what products you sell.
Oh, I sell so much. Books. You can see a few of my books behind me, but I've got a lot of books. I sell a lot of mixed media. Because I'm a textile artist and I'm really into mixed media. I tend to That's another thing my husband said to me once. You only sell things that you like. I went, yeah, what's the point otherwise? So I sell a lot of the stock that I use, and again, that's another one of the reasons I started, because I couldn't get what I wanted when I was doing my course. So it's another reason for starting up. But anyway, yeah, I sell books, mixed media supplies, needlework supplies, of course. I sell threads and kits and knitting wool. I stock Rowan yarn, which is good. Sewing machines, I sell those as well. I work with Brother and Baby Lock, so we sell their machines. And I've also got the gallery, of course. So we've got a room which is our dedicated gallery. And I'm gradually getting into art supplies as well, again, because I use those in my mixed media work. So I'm working with a particular supplier of those. Zentangle, which is something else that I'm into at the moment. So I sell their supplies as well. That's a meditative drawing technique, really helped me get through lockdown. So that's something else we're getting into in a big way now.
Yeah. Do I expect to come up to your room and see like a load of incense sticks burning, and you're all doing your Zen drawing?
we do sometimes. We sometimes have a scented candle burning, but I have to be aware of the fire alarms, because we've got quite sensitive ones. So if I have smoke going up, we might end up triggering the fire alarm. So I've done that before. So no, we don't have those. But yeah, we try and do it in a quietish environment when we're tangling. So yeah.
So as your business has got physically bigger, taken over several shop areas on the first floor of the craft village, what do you do? What has it expanded to? So what as you've grown, what has sort of developed?
Yeah, well, the gallery, obviously, when I had just one studio, I had like half a wall that was a gallery. I mean, I had it all there, and I had one table where I used to do workshops and stock. And that's just expanded. The first expansion we did, we went over the corridor. So that was then the gallery and where I did my workshop. So that made a little bit more room for stock in the other studio. And then we expanded again, which again made the gallery bigger, which meant I could have a separate space for workshops, a separate space for the gallery, and a separate shop. And the last expansion, which we did about 4 years ago, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, it's amazing how time flies. We had a bigger workshop area, even bigger, which meant I could get up to about 15 people in. Again, bigger shop meant I could get more stock, and then a dedicated room for the sewing machines. And an even nicer area for the gallery. Since COVID, that's impacted quite a bit on the business. I've had to reduce the workshop area so that I could expand the shop a little bit more to make it easier for people to get around. When we've got lockdown and kind of a few people in the shop, we have a one-way system going. So that's meant I've had to sort of reduce the workshop area slightly. But that's not a bad thing. It just means that I have smaller quantities on, and I think that makes it more intimate, actually. I think when you've got 10 upwards people, it can be a little bit impersonal, and I quite like doing one-to-one workshops as well, which is something that I offer during not during COVID, not during the lockdown, obviously, but when people are a little bit unsure of themselves, sometimes they'll prefer a one-to-one workshop rather than have lots of people around them. So that's something that I've been offering.
I forgot to put this down, but so how did COVID and the lockdown impact you?
Well, massively. Obviously, it meant that we couldn't do our workshops. I had to refund a lot of people money. But I mean, most people were really, really good. They said, "Oh no, we'll hang on, wait until we can get back in again." So that was very positive, and it's really nice to hear that. But obviously, there was no money coming in. We managed to sell a little bit online. We did a few online workshops, particularly Zentangle. That's particularly good for working online via Zoom. That's something else that we've done. Learn how to use Zoom. I didn't know how to do that before. And although some groups and things, my knitting group, for example, that I had every month, a lot of those ladies are of a certain age, let's put it that way, not particularly au fait with computers, and they came along more for the companionship than anything else, and the interaction. So Zoom didn't work for them. They weren't interested in doing that. So we're just beginning to open up that sort of class and group again now. the government money, whatever you think of the government money, the grants and the loans, that's helped immensely. I think without those, we would have gone under.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband was really good when it all started. He said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll pay your rent," but he couldn't have done that for this long.
No.
You know, it just wouldn't have worked. So that's helped immensely.
Yeah.
But we've got to stand on our own feet again now. You know, that money's all finished now.
Yeah.
So, but at the moment, you know, some days are good, some days are bad. But we're selling enough to pay the rent at the moment, which is all I can ask for.
Yeah.
And I think it'll get a little bit worse before they start getting better. I'm not expecting to get back to anywhere near normal until well into next year.
Yeah.
But that's just something you had to plan for. And actually planning was the worst thing. You know, the fact that I couldn't plan. Anytime I did plan anything, it changed again.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing. And that affected my mental health more than anything. And that also made me realise that I need to be here. I should have retired years ago, but I need to be here for my mental health. And that was something that COVID proved to me.
Yes. And so one of the things that I think I read about you, I was sort of looking up online, is that you say it's so good for mental health and it has helped you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I suffered from depression since puberty, really, probably all my life. And it wasn't really diagnosed until after I'd had my children. I suffered postmental depression really badly as well, which wasn't diagnosed in those days. You just got on with it. And it wasn't until I went to the doctor one day and he said, "Oh, this is what you've got," and he put me on antidepressants, and that helped. You know, it did work my way. I did work my way through it. But it was always something, that black cloud was always sort of hovering, you know, and I could almost see it. It was almost a tangible thing. But since I've started the shop, things have just completely changed. I haven't been on antidepressants probably for 15, 20 years. I can manage it a lot better now, mostly. And crafting, and particularly, you know, anything that's mindful does help, but crafting in particular. And I've seen it in a lot of my customers as well, you know, that they've said that it's been really hard for them, and that crafting has helped them go through it, and
helps you relax, gives you something to concentrate on.
Yeah, exactly. It takes you out of your mind, out of what's worrying you. You know, you just park it and get on with something that's for you. Rather than to worry about other people, worry about work, worry about all the things that you worry about. And some people can cope with worry and some people can't. And I'm one of the people that can't.
I'm terrible sometimes when I worry.
So I would recommend crafting of any sort to anybody.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. So you've got the Alchemy Gallery, which is a beautiful name, and several exhibition, and you've got some coming up. And do you want to tell them about?
Yeah, at the moment I've got an exhibition by a lady called Sandy Draper. She's a good friend, but she's an embroiderer as well. So there's she's having a retrospective at the moment. So there's lots of work that she's done over the years in there. And it's really interesting. She's a Buddhist, and a lot of her work is inspired by that. So it really is a good exhibition. Last month I had an exhibition by my granddaughter. She's just finished her first year at university. She's doing, I don't have to remember, but anyway, basically it's a knitting degree. She's fashion design and knit. So so she had her first year work as an exhibition last month. Next month, November, we've got a Zentangle exhibition. So it's my Zentangle group and some of our other Zentangle customers. They'll be exhibiting their work next month. And then in December, it's my textile group, which is the Minerva Textile Group. We have an exhibition, or should have an exhibition every year, but obviously we haven't been able to have one for the last year or so. So all the work that's going up in December is the work that we should have had last December. So we've delayed it a year. Is it last December or was it the December before? No, it's last December. These months seem to run into each other. I couldn't tell you what month it was, what day it was, and what year it is sometimes.
So you know your textile group, do you have to join that? Are they open to other members?
That's by invitation. So you join
by invitation, and you have to be a textile artist. Not a learner.
But any sort of textiles. We've got one lady that's just joined us this year. She's just finished her City and Guilds in creative embroidery. So there's her Sandy Draper, who I mentioned before. She's in it. a lady called Wendy Mansfield who does teaching for me as well. She teaches gold work and in embroidery. I've got a lady called Yvonne. No, I haven't. Oh, like in my mind. A couple of other ladies as well on it. So I think there's 6 of us all together. Yeah, they produce some really, really good work. So that'll be that's coming in December and January. And then next year we've got my annual competition. I hold an annual competition for my customers. It has been called Tantalising Textiles in the past, but I'm opening it up to all artists now. I've got to think of a nice catchy title for it. I might just call it Tantalising. So that will be, and that's a competition that's voted for by my customers. And there's an entry fee for that, and we divide the entry fee between the artist, St Luke's Hospice, and we do a customer draw as well. So anybody that votes, they go into the draw to win a voucher to spend in the shop. And that's been going. It will be the 11th year next year that's been going. I also have an exhibition for my workshop, so anybody that's been on a workshop can submit their work into the exhibition. We haven't been doing that many workshops. So last year I had a lockdown exhibition. Anybody that could that wanted to submit work that they'd done during lockdown, and I haven't quite decided how I'm going to work that this year. It might be workshop work, or I might sort of bring in that again as well. So sort of that, and the rest of the time I hire out the gallery to individuals and groups. So we'll show those up, and I've got a couple of those coming up as well.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. You are you're a textile artist yourself, and it's become more popular over years. How did you actually get into textile art?
Oh, that's a long story. When the children were small, I went to a cross stitch and patchwork group once a month, and that sort of kept me going. You know, sometimes that was the only embroidery or I did during the whole month, but I did it. And then one of the girls that ran the group went on her City and Guilds patchwork. And I just thought, oh, there's no way I could ever do anything like that. She just did some wonderful work. And then life changed and I didn't have a full-time job anymore. So I decided that I would go for it and do my City and Guilds in embroidery though, not patchwork. Patchwork isn't really my thing. So I did that. I did a sort of like a 1-year course, first of all, just to see if I liked it. And then I signed up for a longer course and did that. Then I opened the shop, so I took a year off, but I missed it so much, I went on to do the more advanced course as well. So that got me into it. And during that, creative embroidery, you do all sorts of things. I mean, you do paper crafts, you do embroidery, you do a little bit of patchwork, which I didn't particularly like very much, but you did it anyway. And that sort of got me into the mixed media, and then getting into that world, going to the knitting and stitching show at Ali Pali and seeing some of the work that was produced. That really made me think that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, got passion for it. I do admire textile art. It's a little bit different. The ones I've seen in your gallery, where it's all the sort of special papers and you fuse them and things like that. It's lovely, really nice.
Yeah, it really is good, and it just means that you can let your imagination go. You know, you can do anything you want to, really.
Have you got any textile art to show at the moment?
I have, yeah. I've taken a few things off the wall. So let me show you. I'll show you that in a moment. But this is some hand embroidery that I did. I don't know if you can see that.
What's it? How's that done? Sewing or?
That's hand embroidery.
Hand embroidery, right? Yeah. Wow.
And I don't know if you can guess what that's supposed to be.
Is it meant to be David Bowie?
It is, yeah. During lockdown, one of the groups that I was in on Facebook, they did sort of like a free course, and they were doing different techniques. And you were supposed to take a picture of your own eye and embroider it, and I wasn't going to do that. So I thought I'd do David Bowie instead. So that's that. What else have we got? On the same course, we did another. This is more mixed media, so it's rusted paper, rusted fabric rather, and some bits and pieces that line around some lace. That's free motion, so that's machine embroidery that I've done.
Oh, lovely.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's that. And then I thought I'd show you a couple of pieces of Zentangle. Oh, these are a bit bigger.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on big screen actually, so everyone can have a better look. Should have thought that before. Go on then. Oh wow.
Okay. So that's some Zentangle work. Okay.
Yeah,
You work on the small
amazing.
tile. Yeah, you work on these small tiles, and those are sort of stuck together, worked on and then stuck together. And then this is another one. Zentangle. Whoops. See that one?
Lovely. Really lovely. I love it.
So they'll be in the gallery in November, so you'll be able to see them closer up then.
The Zentangle.
Yeah.
Is that by pen? Is that pen?
Yeah. We use pens like this.
Yeah.
Micron pens, and we include all sorts of things in it as well. Once you start working, we usually work in black and white. But then you introduce colour and pastels and watercolour paints and things as well. So it's bringing that mixed media element, which I like.
Yeah.
And it's a very meditative form of drawing. And although there's set patterns in it, which means you don't have to necessarily think about it, which is where the relaxing part of it comes in. You're told what to do, but you do it your own way. Do you know what I mean? Although it's structured, I suppose that's the best word for it.
Yes.
But you can then expand it and do whatever you want with it, which sometimes you just don't want to, sort of be totally creative. I mean, sometimes being creative can be very hard work. And it's just nice sometimes just to do something that will just, take you out of your zone, really, and take you into a zone and get you relaxed. So it's really very, very good.
So you've got several one-to-one classes coming up, including Zentangle. And tell me about them and the therapeutic. Well, you've told me about therapeutic benefits now, but
I think we've more or less covered that. I mean, I just can't emphasise that enough, really.
No.
But yeah, Zentangle I'm focusing a lot on at the moment. You have to be an official trainer to do Zentangle teaching.
Yeah.
And I did that in April this year during lockdown. Normally you'd have to go to America to do it, but they did it online. So I took advantage of that.
Yeah.
I do a lot of sewing machine classes. People bring in their sewing machines and I show them how to do it, how to use them. Also, I sell sewing machines as well, so I always give free training when people buy a sewing machine. So we do a lot of that. Just trying to think what else. Embroidery, hand embroidery. I'm just coming to the end of my first embroidery course. I used to always focus on single lessons, and just do sort of projects. But a lot of people wanted to sign up for a course, so I've just done my first one. I'll be repeating that next year because that's been really successful. I have visiting tutors as well come in to do classes, not as many as I used to because I haven't got such a big space now, so it has to be financially viable. And some tutors, I have to have sort of 10 people or so to make it so, and that's not necessarily going to work anymore. So that's something I've got to rethink.
Yeah.
What else?
So I think I asked you. Yeah, I don't think I asked you about your group classes, did I? What were you doing?
Yeah. I mean, as I say, we do group embroidery classes. We have sort of like meetups. So I've got a knitting group, which is just beginning to start up again, an embroidery group. And I also have a machine embroidery group, or I had a machine embroidery group. We used to get about 15 people or so coming onto that. We're not starting that up again until next year. I think I've worked around how we're going to do that. We have to restrict numbers, but we're going to start that up again next year.
Yeah.
But there's always information on the website about our courses. As I say, you can always sign up to our newsletter, and we put all our newest courses in there and give you more information about that, new stock that's coming in. I've got a lot of resources. When we started lockdown, I started putting links to other places like museums and anything that I could find really that I thought might be useful for people during lockdown. And we're continuing that because people found that really, really helpful. So there's always lots of resources in the newsletter as well to lots of different things, to different exhibitions. It could be to places where they can download free patterns or all sorts of things.
Brilliant. So if you weren't running Craft Arena and all it entails, what do you think you'd be doing?
I don't know. Probably something similar to what I'm already doing. Travel, I think. I'd like to travel a lot more. Obviously, running the shop, I can't do that. I mean, before I had the shop, my husband and I used to go on lots of holidays, but we can't do that anymore. Well, we can't do it at all at the moment.
You could explore crafts from around the world, couldn't you?
Yeah. Oh, well, I've done that. Just before lockdown, I went to India on a crafting holiday.
Oh,
So I'd like to do more of that sort of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably what I'd do if I wasn't
Yeah.
doing property.
Oh, by the way, at some point when you were talking, your face froze and you were still talking. So,
Oh, right.
you know. Is there anything else you want to
The
tell me
internet
about?
here is particularly wonderful. It
Oh,
does tend to freeze a bit sometimes.
yeah. Is there anything else you want to tell me about?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered everything, isn't it? I mean, I've even given a plug to the website, so if anybody does want to find out more about me, they can look there or come into the shop and ask.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you were talking about, how it helped with depression. I think I've been feeling this bit of this cloud thing recently, this sort of dark cloud over my head. And well, it actually did help when I started taking vitamin D, because the weather's changed, and I started taking the vitamin D, and I felt a lot better, and actually not on a really strong strength pump. But yeah, I just think it's horrible, isn't it? And you don't know why you feel like that when you feel like that. And I've had that recently, and it's not something I've had all my life. It's just, well, I've had
I think a lot of people have found the same, haven't they? They just it's just changed from routine as well, isn't it? You get stuck into a routine, and you get that coping mechanism when you can cope with everything, and all of a sudden everything changes. And you don't know what's happening. And I think it's the uncertainty that.
I think it's uncertainty and the lack of freedom, because you can't just be spontaneous. You've got to think about everything.
Right. I can remember another funny story, actually. I can remember once when I'd started working from home, my husband took voluntary redundancy, which meant that he was home as well. And one day he said to me, I went to go out, and he said to me, where are you going? So I said, I don't know, I just feel like going out. He said, well, what time are you going to be back? And I hit the roof. I said,
I know what you mean.
Years I've been able to go where I wanted, do what I wanted to do, and all of a sudden you're trying to pin me down.
I know.
But I was only, and I said, I know what you were only trying to do.
I think like,
I feel like it.
My husband is quite an organised person, and he says, what time do you think you'll be home for something? I said, oh no, just chill, be cash. I said,
I'm back on back.
But I think he's thinking when he's going to do something to fit it around me, but then you think, it's sort of it gets your nerves fierce, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I like being independent.
Yeah, I do as well. Well, I try to be. I stopped driving a few years ago, so I'm not as independent as I used to be. But yeah, I like to be too. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you, Denise.
Yeah, and you. It's been lovely to see you again.
Yeah, and I'll pop in one day and say hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Okay then. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.